We wanted to talk about briefly today are a couple of issues. One is the issue of what happened last night in the streets between 15th and 16th on Cleveland, where there was an amazing amount of restraint on the protesters and violence by the police and a lot of misrepresentation and erroneous reporting in the news that we'd like to clear up. And then we also want to talk about this morning in Civic Center Park when the police brought the riot groups in, the horses in, and had illegally arrested 2 people in the park. And we wanted to address what happened there this morning with the confrontation that happened with the police and how that's setting the tone for the rest of the convention. My name is Glenn Spagnello. I'm one of the co-founders and one of the spokespeople for the Recreate 68 Alliance. We also have some folks here from Code Pink. One of their members got arrested this morning. A friend of one of the gentlemen who just bailed out, one of the folks who got arrested this morning. We also have one of the lawyers here, and we're going to try. What you all got to was the aftermath of what started in Civic Center Park at around 6 p.m. What you saw on 15th in Cleveland was not the beginning and the end of what occurred. At around 6 o'clock in Civic Center Park, the police were coming through, fully dressed in their armor, and they were pushing people around. People were seated in front of the Food Not Bombs table, eating peacefully. They were pushed with their feet, told get out of their way. When we asked our police liaison what was going on, because we've been given a police liaison, his name is Lieutenant Les Perry, we contacted him right away, and we said that for the last 48 hours, everything has been peaceful and nonviolent. Why are you, amping up the tension in the park right now? He told me that they were looking for somebody who was putting a bandana on their face. We explained to him that in the city of Denver, putting a bandana on your face is not a crime, and there's no reason for the police to start pushing through the crowds like this, increasing the tension in the park. After we discussed that with him, he had pulled all of his officers out of the park to try to ease the tensions that were created. But unfortunately, about 15 minutes later, the police came right back in the park and started pushing through the crowds again. When we addressed that with the officer again, he agreed that we were right, and this game went on for 2 or 3 times where they would remove the police and bring them back in under the pretense that they were looking for people who are quote-unquote masking up. But wearing a bandana on your face is not an illegal act. I want to repeat that. After the 3rd time, the tensions were getting pretty high because when you keep walking into a peaceful assembly where people were sitting down, eating free food that we were serving to the community, getting down to some really good music that we were providing for free in a very festive atmosphere, to have these goons coming dressed in their riot uniforms, shoving people around the way they were, tensions were getting high. Some of the younger folks in the park, rightfully so, put their bandanas on their face to show solidarity, came together and started chanting "No justice, no peace," which also, remind you, is legal in the city of Denver to chant in a park. It's called your First Amendment. The police got pretty worked up over that situation. This is all the part that the media missed. The police got pretty worked up over that situation and came in a couple of different squads worth of people heading towards that group. That group, fearing for what was going on with the police, started moving out pretty quick and went out into the open street on Bannock in front of the city and county building as an exit area when the police formed a line across the street. The people who were in the street in a defensive technique formed their own line and walked towards that police line instead of going back to the park where there were even more riot police. At which point, when they got within about 5 feet of that police line, massive amounts of pepper spray and pepper balls were used. People moved back into the park and formed a line in the park trying to prevent the police from coming in and continuing this type of behavior. The police rushed that line, and like I said, most of this was missed by the media, which is unfortunate. Police rushed that line. People ran from the police across through the park out towards Cleveland at 15th Street. When they ran down 15th Street, the police formed another line there and stopped them right about in between 15th and 16th. Between Cleveland and Court on 15th. A lot of people moved to the sidewalk and were trying to observe what was going on. Some folks made a line in the street to stop the police advancement towards the folks on the sidewalk. They were pretty much immediately detained by the police and were starting to be processed. There were roughly between 250 to 300 people who were still detained on the sidewalk on that road because the police blocked off both ends of the sidewalk. When we tried to walk out with our hands up, saying that we're peaceful, we want a peaceful resolution to this, we don't want to be arrested, we were hit in the chest with billy clubs and told to get back in and shut the fuck up. This is what the police officers told us. So in that row of people, we had older people, we had women, we had children who were just walking back from dinner on the 16th Street Mall and had no idea what was going on. We had children who were crying because the police were spraying pepper spray in the air. We had an old gentleman who was practically ready to pass out. We had another older gentleman who fell when the police surged into the crowd and cut his eye. So we went up to the police and started negotiating and asked if we could at least get the children out of here and some of the older people out of here. They're clearly not involved in this. Let's get them out. We were told that's not happening. To shut up and get back into the crowd. Assembly going on. We had Jim Page playing some music, again in a pretty good festive atmosphere. These folks came in the park and started disturbing a public assembly, which is illegal in the city of Denver. Cursing at people, yelling at people, telling people that, God hates fags and all the stuff that he normally does. One of our representatives, Carlo Garcia, approached those folks and started arguing with them. A confrontation just verbally had occurred. The police moved in relatively quick and told Carlo Garcia, the legal permit holder for the park, that he needed to step back and move away from the gentleman. Carlo told them that we have the permit and you should really be talking to the people who are disrupting the assembly and that they need to step back and that he wants to address the situation, at which time Carlo Garcia was tackled by the officer without any warning, handcuffed, pulled up and started being dragged out of the park. A lot of us were demanding to know why this was happening. We were trying to get close to Carlo to hear what was happening. Unfortunately, the police were using their billy clubs to push people back and out of the way. They brought horses in to use to make a line to push people back and out of the way. A representative from Code Pink was out in the street with me trying to ask why he was being arrested, at which time she was hit across the upper chest area relatively hard from somebody who took a good full 2 steps and hit her with the billy club and knocked her on the ground. We're just asking why Carlo was arrested and where he was being processed. She was picked up and immediately arrested also.
The people who were held on the sidewalk were detained illegally with no explanation for over an hour. As a result of this violation of people's civil liberties, we are talking to the attorneys about suing the city of Denver. We know from a number of previous events like this, previous conventions, globalization protests and so on, that these kinds of illegal actions have resulted in major lawsuits against cities, resulting in payments of millions of dollars. We know that the city of Denver was given $50 million for security for this convention. We're not sure exactly what was done with that money, but we think it's about time that some of that money go to people who have been victimized and whose civil liberties have been violated during this convention by unnecessary, overly violent police, illegal police tactics.
We asked to stand down and be peaceful. We had already guaranteed that we would be, but they would not give that guarantee. But it is amazing that this would occur during the so-called Democratic National Convention, and when the platform that is being run is one of hope and change. But this is the face that Denver wants to put on for the rest of the world. And maybe they have not realized it yet, but the rest of the world is watching. And so our police liaison, Les Perry, and Mayor Hickenlooper should realize from this point onward that the world is definitely watching. And one of the things that we demand, we're not asking, is that the police be removed from the park. We have not done anything. So why are the police constantly parading around the park and kicking people and poking them with their batons and telling them to move as they walk in groups of 10 to 12? The police need to leave the park that we have the permit for. That is our demand, one of our demands, and that we expect that be done immediately, that they would be removed from the park.